Hey, Keto freaks. Here's an update on Keto Fest. Keto Fest is a ketogenic festival for everyone. Richard Morris and I, along with a host of keto rock stars you probably know, are turning the entire coastal town of New London, Connecticut ketogenic for a whole weekend next July. At least we hope it'll be next July. The actual date won't be confirmed until mid-January. You want talks by some of the hottest names in keto? Some of the best and brightest minds have already said they want to come, including Jimmy Moore, Megan Ramos, Ivor Cummins, Dr. Jeff Gerber, Dr. Eric Westman, and Dr. Ted Naiman. We hope to have a bacon bar going all day long during the talks. Knowledge and bacon. But we're going to do much more than sit in on these great talks. How about an outdoor pig roast, cooking classes, fitness classes, walking tours, Segway tours, and of course, live music and hanging out with fellow Ketonians. Several restaurants and bars in the neighborhood have offered up a special keto menu that includes low-carb potables, chicken wings, and fathead pizza. Wouldn't a fathead pizza truck be the best ever? Yeah, I'm talking a portable brick oven, all weekend long. Well, we're going to have a Kickstarter in March to sell tickets. Meantime, add your name to the mailing list at ketofest.com. Keto Fest, real keto for real people. Welcome back to Two Keto Dudes. This is Carl Franklin from Connecticut in the United States. And in February 2016, I put myself on a ketogenic diet to take control of my metabolism. In just 2.5 months, I managed to reverse all my markers of type 2 diabetes with diet alone. As of now, I'm about 80 pounds lighter with no signs of diabetes or heart disease.
Hi, I'm Richard Morris in Canberra, Australia, and I've been on a ketogenic diet for 3 years, in April. And when I started, I was very sick with complications from type 2 diabetes. Within 6 months of starting a ketogenic diet, all of my biomarkers of disease had disappeared. I've also lost about 80 pounds, and I've completely turned my health around.
And this show is a document of my progress through ketosis and Richard's experience thriving for years in ketosis.
Yeah.
And hopefully that might help a few people who are curious about this kind of dietary hacking.
Yeah, we're not doctors. We don't want to give anyone any medical advice, but we are keen to share our own experiences. We're actually both software developers, so we're not afraid of a little technical detail, are we, Carl?
Nah.
We've done some research into our own deranged metabolisms and the science behind them, and we hope to share some of that research. Where possible, we intend to put links in the show notes to cite research supporting any claims that we make.
And you'll probably work out pretty quickly that we're both foodies.
Oh, yeah.
We love to cook, and we love to eat. In every episode, we both share a keto recipe that cannot be ignored.
No, it can't.
All right, so let's start podcast number 50, Family Support. Well, Richard, do we have any corrections or apologies from last week's show?
No, I think we did okay last week.
Yeah, it was mostly just talking to Lino.
Yeah, that's right. No, that was awesome, that show. Paying it forward.
Oh, yeah, and he's still doing great, by the way. I heard from him. I heard from his wife yesterday.
That's awesome.
And she sent me a picture of a Carl's Head pizza they made.
Good old Carl's Head pizza.
Yeah. Well, let's revisit what a ketogenic diet is. I'll do that.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's basically 20 grams of carbs or less per day.
Yep.
Protein scales with lean body mass.
That's right.
Yeah, for most average people, it's between 50 and 80 to 100 grams of protein, but it's basically 1 gram of protein for every kilogram of lean body mass you have. Lean body mass is how much you weighed when you were in high school, right?
Well, for me, I went and got a DEXA scan, so I know precisely to the nearest gram what my lean body mass is.
Yeah.
Most people don't have access to that, so
right.
You're working on your ideal weight.
Yeah, pretty much people eat the protein that they need, and your protein isn't going to change. This is not a high-protein diet.
No.
It's actually a moderate protein diet, but it's a high-fat diet. You want to eat fat to satiety, and the whole idea is that if you replace the carbohydrates in your diet with fat, and really lean into it. We think this is the reason most people fail at a low-carb diet is because they go calorie restricted because they're not actually getting enough energy.
Right.
And that has got to come from fat.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
So, Richard, how was your week?
Mine was an interesting week. I've picked up a knee injury the last big bike ride I did. I did 60K up to the nearest town, around their lake and back to our lake and then home. And I picked up a niggling knee injury. Like I've had a torn meniscus underneath my kneecap on my left side for a decade, but it's been low grade. And so, it's been something that the ketogenic diet dropped my inflammation, and so a lot of the pain went away. But just this past week, it's just been really giving me jip. So it's probably my knee just telling me that it knows that I want to go skiing in a month's time, and it's getting ready to deny me. But yeah, I've had an interesting week because, last week we were talking about paying it forward. Well, this week I was paying it back. There's a guy called Gary Fettke we've spoken about before during the Mad as Hell show.
Yeah.
This guy is an orthopedic surgeon in Australia who has been he's been very public about the ketogenic diet, certainly about low-carb, healthy fat diets, and he was advocating for a change in hospital food because if you've ever had to stay in hospital, it's just carbs, carbs, carbs.
Yeah.
And he's been criticised by the Dietitians Association of Australia for about 5 years over this. And they decided they'd take him down by complaining to the regulatory body that regulates medical licenses. And they've basically threatened to take away his medical license if he doesn't stop talking about diet. Now, this is a guy who cuts the feet off diabetics.
Yeah.
So he is the guy at the end of the production line of failed medicine, failing diabetics and making their disease progress, making them more medicated and more sick with less body parts and dying early. And this is basically the orthopedic surgeon is the guy at the end of the line who cuts their feet off.
Oh, that's
terrible.
terrible.
When they have gangrene and suppurating ulcers in their feet, that just won't heal because of diabetes. So he basically determined to go up the food chain a little bit to try and help the problem where it could be addressed early on, and that was to help people with diet. So anyway, as you know, the regulatory body has basically threatened him and said if you speak out about diet, then we will threaten to take your license away from you. So I've been organising to try and get him to speak at the National Press Club in Australia, which is a weekly televised nationally address watched by millions of people. So in the early days when I first was researching keto and not quite sure whether it would work or not, there were a lot of flim-flam men sort of telling me how wonderful it was and all I needed to do was to take their supplements and ketogenic diets would be great for me. There are a couple of doctors like Gary Fettke and Ted Naiman who were just giving free videos out on the web reassuring people that, yes, there is some medical basis behind this, there is some science behind it, and here it is, and this is why it's good for you. So this was an opportunity for me to pay back to some of the people who basically got me going in this whole process. So Julie and I are going to book a couple of tables. And any local low-carb people in Canberra, we're going to have a table for the presentation. We are going to hopefully be able to spend some time with Dr. Fettke and his wife. And that should be the end of March. So I'm just letting people know now that if you're in Canberra or you want to get to Canberra, you want to see some history made in the low-carb area, then something could be happening at the end of March. So watch this space.
Wow, that's great. Mm-hmm. That is great, Richard.
Yes.
And he's also going to be in Breckenridge with us.
He is, yes.
And we'll get to interview him for the show, I think. Hopefully.
That'll be awesome. In fact, we're gonna interview a lot of people. We're gonna do some videos. We're gonna cook some food. We're gonna do some skiing. We're gonna go to some conferences. It's going to be awesome. So I'm very much looking forward to it. So that was my week. How was yours, Carl?
Pretty good. After I came home from Lena's house, I had only one short day at home with my wife and had to get right on a plane to go to London for a developer conference called NDC London.
Right.
And I was very surprised when I walked in to see right next to the booth where I'm recording podcasts with my business partner, Richard Campbell, for programming. They had set up a food station called Carl's Diner. And it was, Carl Franklin's ketonic experience, basically.
So where did they get that from?
Well, the guy who organizes the conference was interested in keto.
Right.
He's a weightlifter, and he was interested in it.
Awesome.
And so I guess he looked into it, and I gave him some resources, and he had seen my progress and was extremely impressed.
Yeah.
And so he said, why don't we do a keto diner right next to .NET Rocks? And I said, yeah, that's great. Yeah. But I didn't really think much of it. But then there it was when I walked in. Yeah. So they served what they thought was keto food. And I say what they thought because they got the low carb right, or lower carb. The first day there was salmon with hollandaise sauce and
that's not too bad.
Sauteed spinach. And that was really good.
Yeah.
And then the second day they had chorizo meatballs with cauliflower mash.
Okay.
And that was pretty good. However, the chorizo meatballs were made with breadcrumbs, and they weren't at all fatty. They were lean, and they were swimming in tomato sauce. And the cauliflower mash didn't have any fat in it either. It was just like boiled cauliflower just mashed up. It was kind of,
Yeah. Okay.
So today they had a chicken, sort of like a chicken curry, but didn't have curry. It was like a creamy tomato-based chicken.
Right.
That had some turnips and things in it. And that was over what they said was cauliflower rice. However, it was a combination of mashed cauliflower and rice.
They made an effort. So I give them a B+.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it was great. And the conference is over now, so it was just 3 days.
Nice.
But I got to do a lightning talk, which is a 15-minute talk.
Sure.
I showed my before and after picture, and I had never gone through the whole thing so quickly. But a lot of people were surprised. A lot of people were very, very surprised at how counterintuitive this hack seems to be.
Yeah.
And just couldn't believe it. And a lot of people had a hard time believing it. So without the science, and actually having time to show the studies and things, it just sounds like it's too good to be true.
I think the important thing is showing people the evidence of their own eyes, being able to see you standing in front of them. And they probably all saw you there last year. Yep. So and that was before you went keto.
Yeah.
So everybody who goes to these conferences generally they go to the same conference every year, and they are probably all your fans, and were probably gobsmacked when they saw you. So
I got so many people who just couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe the difference.
So can I interject here? Because it was this time last year you were at your heaviest because you went right to Scotland, didn't you, after NDC last year?
That's right.
That's where the before picture was taken.
That is correct. And that voice is the voice of my wife, Kelly, who is our guest on this show. And yes, you're absolutely right, Kelly. So before we talk to Kelly about, the topic today, which is family support, we need to read a few items of mail. We're justified. We don't need no mail.
So I'm going to go first.
Okay.
I've got a message from our ketogenic forums from Hannah. And Hannah says, last October, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. After all the blood and urine tests, I went back after 2 weeks, this was in November, to hear the results. Not good. My blood glucose was 29.
Oh my, 29. What would that be in the United States?
That's 522 milligrams per deciliter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a lot of sugar. Hannah's urine was also full of glucose because, of course, anything over the kidney threshold will spill into urine. That's how the body gets rid of glucose when it has no other way of getting rid of it. And she goes on, she says, my HbA1c was 11.
Oh.
And that was about where mine was at my worst. 11.2 was my worst, and my blood glucose was about 350. So it was about 20 in millimoles per litre. Not nearly quite as bad, but so Henna is seriously type 2 diabetic here. There's no doctor who could fail to notice that she's type 2 diabetic.
Yeah.
So Henna says 3 months later, full keto, and her doctor put her on the keto.
Wow.
Not one single cheat day of any kind. She went 0 carb for 14 days and then went back to keto. She says, I went today for new tests. My blood glucose was 9.8.
Wow.
And she says my urine had 0 glucose, which means, she glucose was not over the renal threshold.
Yeah.
She says my HbA1c, drum roll, was 6.4%.
Outstanding.
Which is awesome. Just 3 months. And here's what my doctor said. You and keto just saved your life.
Wow.
She says, I'm so happy and proud. I go back in 3 months and I know it will be just as good. I just love keto.
That is so great.
So what a good story.
And it's a common story. We're hearing, not everybody has the perspective that we have, Richard, being in that Facebook group with 13,000 people.
Yeah.
And we see things posted like this every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every day. And now we're seeing it in the ketogenic forums. It's just amazing. It's overwhelming evidence.
I think we've had maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people in the Facebook group and now in the ketogenic forum talk about how this exact thing has happened to them.
Yep, I think you're right.
Basically, it happened to Brenda Zorn. It happened to me. I had both Brenda and I both had high glucose like this, and then within about 3 months, everything all started to come down.
Yeah.
I remember when we got you on this, you had high glucose. You had all the same issues.
All the same issues.
And I can remember when you got your first blood test, and I was nervous because I knew the science.
Yeah.
You remember I was nervous, right?
I do remember, yeah.
I knew the science, and I knew it worked for me, and it had worked for everybody else who I've ever seen try it. But I was so nervous because what if you were the one person that it didn't work for?
Right.
But as it turned out, you weren't that guy.
Yeah. Thank God, huh?
Yeah.
All right. So here's a message also from the ketogenic forums from Yeti Garcia. And I'm not sure if that's a name or if that's just a username, but Yeti says, I think for the first time in my adult life, I haven't been hungry for lunch.
Wow.
This is a really strange feeling.
Yeah.
Like I would usually get cranky if I hadn't eaten in a few hours. Also, I feel really clear today. I work at a computer all day and I've been pretty nervous about brain fog and not being able to perform at my job. Is it possible that I could skip the keto flu altogether, or am I just not at that point yet?
Yeah, not everybody goes through the keto flu. It's an individual thing.
That's right.
If you manage to keep your salt up, you probably won't notice a lot of that. And the experience that Yeti Garcia is sharing with us is pretty much what happens once you're on keto.
Yeah.
So it could well be that Yeti Garcia just is adapting really quickly and is able to skip most of the nasty sort of effects of not having enough salt and not having energy. It looks like this is working really well.
Okay, Richard, let's bring back Kelly J. Franklin, my wife. And the reason that we wanted to have her on the show was because we've talked about friends and family and how we deal with them. Right? But we really haven't talked about it from a partner's perspective, from a family member's perspective. And so, my wife Kelly is in a kind of a unique position in that she married me when I was a diabetic and, saw me struggle with all of my problems. And then one day I said, I'm going to do this wacky thing, and her first reaction was, well, what was your first reaction, Kelly, when I first told you I was going to do this high-fat, low-carb diet?
Oh, no. Let's tell the real reason while I'm a guest on the show.
Okay.
Because I felt completely dissed on Lino's show.
Okay.
Okay. That's the real reason I'm here.
Right, that's true. And
you said not to slam Kelly, blah, blah, blah. And I was hurt because...
Well, let's tell everybody what exactly happened. So at Lino's show, Lino said he was really grateful to have me there. And I said, it's really nice to be able to cook for people who appreciate the food. And of course, I didn't mean my wife doesn't appreciate that I cook for her, but that's how she heard it. And I meant it because, I'm usually the only one that eats the food that I cook at my house.
You specifically said not to slam Kelly, but I appreciate cooking for people. Or no, I like to cook for people who appreciate my cooking.
Everybody loves to have people appreciate the food that they cook, right?
But we should let the world know it is in our wedding vows that you were supposed to feed me.
Yes, she's absolutely right. When we got married, the minister, who was actually Richard Campbell, said, "Do you, Carl, promise to love, honor, and feed Kelly?" And I said, "I do." And he said, "Do you, Kelly, promise to love, honor, and do Carl's laundry?" And she said, "Yes." And I have lived up to my part of the bargain, and so has she. And so is she. And as a matter of fact, when I tried to do my laundry once, I failed miserably, and now I'm not allowed to even try to do my own laundry. So
anyway, what was the original question? I'm sorry.
All right. The original question was, what went through your mind when I said, I'm going to try this really low carb, high fat version of the Atkins diet, called the ketogenic? You were pretty supportive from the start, but you did have some fear, I remember.
I was skeptical, but because what have we been together, like 7 years now since we started seeing each other? And I can't recall how much weight you had lost in the year previous to our meeting on your steak and bourbon diet. Was it like 60
that's right.
Or how much had you lost? 60 or 70
I had
pounds?
lost 70 pounds, yeah.
And when Carl and I met, I would order dessert as an appetizer because I was afraid I'd be too full after a meal to eat the dessert. So I would just order ahead of time.
It was the funniest thing, Richard. We were at a restaurant, and the guy says, "Can I bring you an appetizer?" And says, Kelly says, "Yes."
Coffee and chocolate cake.
Bring me a coffee and a piece of chocolate cake. So he's like, "Ha ha ha."
No,
so he brings me my salad, brings Kelly the coffee, and Kelly says, "Hey,
where's my chocolate
cake?" And he was like,
it's like, "Oh, you were serious?"
I've got to admit, I used to select restaurants. You're walking around town looking for a good restaurant to eat at, and I would select them based on the quality of their desserts.
Exactly.
I'm a sweet tooth. I always have been. And that's one of the challenges when you go keto. My sweet tooth has dialed that down a little bit. Sweet foods are less of an issue for me, and often I won't have a dessert. Probably most nights of the week I won't have a dessert. Maybe once or twice I might have berries and coconut yogurt or something like that. But I still like to have zero sugar chocolate every now and then, which is one of these things.
I had my own business when my kids were little, and when they started school, and I had this thing called free time. I need to get out of the house.
And this is before me.
This is before Carl, yes. But my sister worked for an old boss of ours, and I would just go and have like chocolate cream pie or banana cream pie and coffee and just get out of the house. And I jokingly said to the owner, who I'd worked for like 20 years prior, said, "Hey, I need to burn off all this pie I'm coming to eat. If you need someone 2 nights a week, I'm your girl." And so I started working there just to burn off pie. And the back of our T-shirts for work say, "Life short, have pie." That was my saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I cannot eat a piece of pie anymore because of Carl Franklin. He's ruined my life. I cannot tolerate sugar anymore. I went from, 6 to 8 cups of coffee with 2 teaspoons of sugar in each and half, to 3 cups of coffee completely black now. So
nice. Yeah.
He has changed my life.
You really have cut out a lot of sugar. And I got to say, you have supported me unbelievably. I am so lucky that you just went along with all of it. And once you sort of kicked sugar and were eating less carbs, you felt better and you said, "Okay, let's just get rid of some of this stuff."
I think it was once I saw the blood work, because that was my big concern. I worked in the medical field for 20 years. And everything is so counterintuitive when you work in the medical field. And I was scared. And I'm like,
not
okay,
surprised.
I'm not going to pass judgment until I see the blood work.
Yeah.
So what did you think when you saw that?
And Carl, I may be wrong because it's been a while, but something in your cholesterol went up the first check.
Yeah, the LDL went up.
Yeah.
But then it came back down at the second check. But you did research and you assured me about it was fluffy, something fluffy.
Yeah, it was the triglycerides were coming down, the HDL was going up, and the LDL was going up at first, and that was after the first 35 pounds, and when the doctor said she was scared, and she did a carotid artery scan, and it came back clear, and ever since then, the doctor's been my biggest cheerleader.
Awesome.
Yeah, but our big, I don't even know what, I don't want to call it a conflict because it's really not, because Carl will cook me anything I ask him.
This is true. Even grilled cheese sandwiches,
which is my favorite food in the whole world.
I find it really rewarding to be able to cook a grilled cheese sandwich and not want to eat it.
Yeah.
But I have gone to low carb bread.
Right. That's true.
Most of the time.
It's actually quite nice, the nutty breads. I actually prefer them over. I mean, I do like a nice sourdough. I did like when I was before I was low carb.
Sourdough.
But most bread, it gets to the point where it's almost like packing material. It's what food comes wrapped in.
Yeah.
That's right.
And nutty breads there's something about them that's quite pleasing. Yeah. So I make an exception for nutty breads, and we get a couple of good zero or very low carb breads here. Herman Brott's one in Australia, and I think you got Marla's bread in the US is pretty good too.
Yeah,
yeah, and I don't even eat that as much as I used to anymore.
No, you haven't. I think I've been selling it out of the freezer actually.
Yes, right. We've been giving it away and
like
selling it to
$12 a loaf. I'm selling this. So,
but Kelly lost some weight when she decided to cut back on carbohydrates too. But Kelly, tell them about your problems digesting fat, which has made it a challenge.
So you started, Carl, February, I believe.
Yeah, last February.
And then I think it was last May you went to Belgium, April or May.
Yes.
And you came home with that horrible bug.
Yeah, that was nasty.
Yeah, I got a virus that was a sort of a super bug.
It was horrible.
Yeah, it was a
Carl,
super virus.
Carl, being so sweet, decided he'd share it with me. He shares everything with me.
Share and share alike.
So we were both miserable for quite a while. And
long time.
It was time for my annual physical. And so I had to, what do you call it?
HbA1c?
A1C. A1C.
Yep.
And mine was 5.8. Or 5.7. It was right in there.
5.7 is the cutoff between normal and pre-diabetes.
Yeah, but this is the girl who eats grilled cheese, like as often as she can, right? So I'm thinking it's pretty darn good. So I don't know if Carl's ever put a picture of the two of us together, but I'm like 5'2", 125 pounds. So my doctor says I'm 12 pounds overweight, but if I weigh my ideal weight, I'm sick all the time. So this is like my ideal weight for me.
Nice. Yeah, Julie's at her ideal weight as well. She started out in this whole thing. She was about 95 kilos, and she's down now to about 61. So she's lost quite a lot.
But this is just my average. But then I think it was around my birthday, which is in June. Carl was in Norway. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this keto thing for a week because my darling husband prepped my food for the whole week. I had meals because it's the contract. And I dropped like 10 pounds. Okay. Just going to black coffee. Part of it was probably that viral thing that I had. But I dropped 10 pounds in like a week.
For someone of your size, that's a lot.
And I was miserable. I felt so sickly. But I do not tolerate fatty food. Like if I eat fried chicken, how graphic. Oh, wait. Brenda Zorn's been on the show.
You can say
Brenda
it.
Zorn's been on here.
But ask Carl, I eat dinner, and 10 minutes later, I'm in the bathroom losing my dinner.
Right.
one way or
Yeah.
the other. Okay, we'll just say it that way. So like when Carl and I go out to eat, he cuts the lean part off his steak and gives it to me, and I cut the fatty part off my steak and give it to him.
That's
And,
Yeah,
awesome.
we're like Jack Sprat and his wife in reverse.
Yeah.
You know, but as I said, the reason I'm here is I felt y'all just totally dissed me on Leno's show, but I do support Carl.
She does. I can't imagine doing this if I didn't have her support, you
Yeah.
know? And if the house was full of popcorn eating, candy
Yeah.
making, whatever, donut eating, you know, it just, at first at least, you know, now I'm completely oblivious to it. But
Yeah.
before, when I was starting, it was really hard to avoid the temptation
Sure.
of carbohydrates because I was addicted like everybody else, you know?
But
Yeah.
you were the worst culprit
I was.
because
Terrible.
we have what we call the carb cabinet in our house, which has, you know, my potato chips and my Triscuits and
Doesn't have much in it now.
no, there's like nothing. There's like anchovies and pork rinds. Okay.
Before the kids went to college and they lived with us, though,
Yeah.
there was, you know, several box of Triscuits, box of Wheat Thins.
So my daughter is a baker and I used to be her number one taster.
Ah.
And she'll make frosting and it's like, here, because frosting is like the best part of any cake or cupcake, right? And the last year she was at home, so I think this was actually right around the time you started keto. We had moved her, but she'd come home and she'd bake, and I can't even taste frosting now. It's like too sweet.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot stand sugar anymore.
Mm.
So it's like everyone jokes that, okay, the saying on your shirt is life short, half pie. I haven't had a piece of pie in over a year.
Yeah.
You know, I get headaches if I eat sugar now.
So here's how awesome Kelly is. She's trying keto just because she wants to support me and, you know,
Sure.
because she thinks that it might be good for her. And yet she's getting sick as a dog and still pushing ahead with it. Like another problem that she has, she doesn't like to take pills. So magnesium supplements and things like that were kind of difficult. So we had to get magnesium citrate. And at first I had these magnesium, potassium, calcium pills that I would crush up and hide in the taco meat, you know.
You hit him in my taco meat?
Oh yeah.
You're not supposed to mention that.
Oh, you never told me that. Oh,
But it really helped though.
It's quite remarkable that Kelly was able to support Carl while she wasn't herself eating keto. I mean, that's remarkable. That takes a lot of strength for both of you to stick with it. And you know, keto doesn't work for everybody. We know that there's at least 15% of human beings on the planet that can apparently eat an unlimited amount of glucose without deranging.
Yeah.
But there's also some people for whom a ketogenic diet doesn't work as well. Some people are able to do it without a gallbladder, but for some people they just need that bile batch to help them digest fat. So that becomes a problem for some people. And there are various genetic issues that we've had probably of the maybe 13,000 people who've gone through our forums. We've had 4 who have had triglycerides go up when they go on a ketogenic diet, which is a very rare thing.
Right.
But it can be an issue, and for those people, they may have problems metabolizing long chain saturated fatty acids. So for them, if they're going to go keto, they probably need to move towards more medium chain triglycerides, cooking with a lot of coconut oil and butter, and rather than tallow and lard, which most of us use. So there are definitely groups of people for whom keto doesn't work. And when you're a couple, I've always said that I'm glad that I've always said that I'm grateful that Julie went keto with me, even though she didn't need to. In the end, it turned out that she recognizes now, looking back, that she did really need to. She just didn't realize it at the beginning. She thought she was doing it for me, and it turned out she ended up doing it for her as well. But
That's awesome.
I'm grateful that she did that. But there are some people for whom it's just going to be one person in the family who's going to be doing it,
Right.
and it takes a lot of strength to do that. All power to you guys for pulling through with that.
the hardest part is because Carl's really good. He'll make me whatever I want to eat. Was when he was adjusting, he was really cranky the first month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Really cranky. And
Yep. It lasted about a week, didn't it?
yeah, you only lasted a day when I tried to quit smoking and I was cranky, and you're like, I'm going to buy you cigarettes. Just saying.
That's right.
Yeah. So he owes me on that one when I try to quit
Yeah.
smoking again. But it was adjusting to mealtime because we're empty nesters now.
Sure.
We only have a kid one day a week regularly. And so it's okay, we're going to have dinner at 5, So I'm like, okay. And then it was, nope, I need to just eat lunch.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people, I don't get hungry till 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And Carl used to nag me about this, like the first few years together.
It's funny,
You've
isn't
got
it?
to eat breakfast. And I'm like, I never eat breakfast.
He was so wrong.
And
I was so wrong.
Like,
yep.
I'm like a 4 to midnight person. That's when I eat. That's what my body likes. I used to be a night owl. Now I'm almost 50 and I'm not so much a night owl anymore, but whatever. But when he went to eating lunch instead of dinner, I have to say that was
hard.
Probably the hardest thing because I wouldn't be hungry. But he would make me dinner, but I couldn't eat because there's just nothing worse than sitting with someone at dinner and the other person not eating.
It's almost an antisocial meal, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So now what we do is if I'm going to eat one meal a day, we usually try to eat around 3 o'clock when she starts getting hungry.
Yep.
Right.
And that's about when I start getting hungry too. But then she'll eat later on.
But then I'll have
in
a
the day.
snack like at 8 or whatever.
Yeah. But that's actually a really good pattern for both of us now.
Yeah. So Julie eats pretty much the same food that I eat, but I fast and she can't. She just doesn't have the body fat to be able to fast, do an extended fast.
Yeah.
She's done like, she tried a 24-hour fast and she made it to 18 hours and then just couldn't go any longer. And that's just the nature of if you have lots of body fat, you can do these kinds of things. And if you don't, you're just not as flexible. And so what we do is when I'm doing an extended fast, maybe I'm doing 5 days of not eating, what I will do, what I used to do is I used to have maybe a quarter of a cup of broth in whisked up with some boiling water, and it would turn sort of milky, and I'd sit there and drink that while she was eating dinner. And I actually made the dinner in a lot of cases, so I do a lot of the cooking in our house as well. But anyway, lately I've been doing less of the broth fasting, so the broth supplementing fasts, and I've been doing a pure water fast, which is where you really only have, I'd have tea. To be sociable, I'd have either a cup of unsweetened tea or I'd have just boiling water. And we found that was a way, if we both sat at the table, she ate the meal and I had a mug of boiling water or tea, that sort of, it met our social needs for having dinner together.
So I think something to look forward to if you and your partner are just starting this, maybe you're the one who's keto and your partner isn't, or vice versa, is that at first it's difficult to have carbs in the house when you're trying to kick the habit,
Sure.
right? But once you have gotten to that point, it's going to be a lot easier. Like I could cook spaghetti, I could cook mac and cheese, I could cook ravioli. I could cook any kind of sandwiches on real bread. I could make anything anybody wants to eat and not feel like I have to taste it, not feel compelled to eat any of it. And that is a really liberating thing because now I can cook for myself and I can cook for my partner. If my partner, even if Kelly wasn't cutting back on carbohydrates, which she is, but even if she wasn't, it would still feel really good for me to feed her, Well,
I appreciate that he feeds me. What I have found funny through this whole thing, though, is I was the sweet tooth. Dessert for appetizers. Carl was never really a sweet tooth person. Once-
Excuse me. I have been known to eradicate all of the Ben and Jerry's from the house in one fell
I'm
swoop.
sorry. Excuse me. Carl was a closet sweetaholic.
Absolutely.
But
If there were Oreos in the house, they would be gone, and the kids would be like, "Who ate my Oreos?" You know?
yeah.
It'd be me at 3:00 in the morning.
Or when he was at the studio late at night, and I'd open up the garbage can, and there'd be like 3 Ben and Jerry's pints.
Absolutely. Fast food junkie.
But he didn't eat it in front of me. So I never.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of us that are in that situation, is that we sneak food because we're addicted to it and our partners can't understand it. We don't understand it. We're just compelled to do it. Like I told the story before, there was time where I woke up at 3:00 in the morning from a sound sleep, starving, so I thought anyway, and needed to go get a pile of food at Burger King. And I did. Yeah. And then I stopped off at the 7-Eleven after that and got some ice cream. It's just insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what's really funny is I was very public about my sweet tooth.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the last time I've had dessert. Do you even remember the last time?
No, I can't.
I think I had like 3 bites of a Krispy Kreme on Christmas because all the kids were home and they went and got some. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the headache that I had from the sugar.
Yeah.
But Carl is always in the kitchen with his, I don't even know, what do you call it, xylitol and swerve. And
Oh, yeah. I love cooking. A great weekend for me is just to turn on the radio, go shopping, and cook.
Yeah.
But I do not tolerate, I have not met an artificial sweetener that I like.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just easier to avoid it.
Yep.
And it's like once a month, I'll go get a coffee with cream and sugar. And that's like a big treat for me. But
Yeah.
an hour later, I so regret it because I have a headache.
Yeah. I think I haven't had sugar for, like almost 3 years now. And the other day we went out to the movies, went and saw the new Star Wars movie. And we went to one of the fancy cinemas where there's a nice big comfy chair and they bring you alcohol and bring you a platter of cheese and stuff like that. And I ordered a rum and diet, and it came and I tasted it, and it was undrinkable, absolutely undrinkable.
Wait. You went to a movie theater and they bring you a platter of cheese?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the new thing.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
the new
Carl.
thing, gold class.
Carl, we might have to start going to the movies if they're going to bring me cheese.
There's only like 24 seats in the cinema, and it's like $70 for a ticket, so or $35 for a ticket, $70 for.
That's
for
all
a
right.
pair,
Carl and I
so-
don't go out that much, so we can afford that once or twice a year.
Yeah, sure.
I think we go to movies maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So anyway, I couldn't drink this, and I said to Julie, "Taste this. It tastes like there's something wrong." And she tasted it. She says, "No, that tastes weird, but it's the last." She says to me, "Last time we were at the movies, you had this problem again. You said that they've given you full strength Coke, and you tested it, and it turns out that it wasn't." So anyway, I had another drink just to see, am I just hallucinating here? No, it was totally undrinkable. And I called the waiter and I said, "I can't drink this." He said, "Would you like me to remake it?" I said, "Yeah, well, it's supposed to be rum and diet. I suspect it may be full-strength Coke." And he bought a new drink, and that was entirely drinkable. So I don't understand how people can drink Coca-Cola if they haven't eaten sugar for a couple of weeks. Coca-Cola must be absolutely undrinkable.
Yeah.
So anyway, do you want my advice to couples if one's keto and one's not?
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what was it you made me the first time with pork rinds instead of breadcrumbs? Was it the chicken parm?
It was a chicken parm, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
very skeptical. Very, very skeptical.
Pork rinds.
Because I hate pork rinds.
Sure.
But what do you mix it with, Carl? Romano?
Parmesan cheese.
Parmesan.
Yeah, or Romano, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like, I would never have known. I guess I am not a very adventuresome eater, would you say? Would that be fair, Carl?
Yeah, I think that's pretty true.
Yeah. Like, don't put sauce on anything because in my mind you're trying to hide something from me. I'm one of those kind of people. But man, that chicken parm rocks. Okay. What do you use? Chicken
Yeah.
thighs?
Well, I have used chicken thighs. The first time I did it with chicken breasts, but chicken thighs are a little tastier, so I ended up using those more.
So there are things that the non-keto people can eat that still taste like our food. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I will occasionally throw a sweet potato on my plate because I love sweet potatoes with cinnamon and butter. So I'm getting my fat, just, you know. But I also have my gallbladder. You mentioned that earlier.
Right.
And that's part of the reason I don't tolerate the fatty foods.
Sure.
Carl and I have done some research. Looks like I just have to push through it for a week or two.
Yeah.
And I'll adapt. Unfortunately, my lifestyle, I have to leave the house once in a while. You know, I can't stay home for 2 solid weeks because I do waitress, and sometimes you can't get to the bathroom for 5 hours. So,
Right.
I also have a condition called hemochromatosis.
Oh, right. Too much iron.
Yeah.
Too much iron buildup in my liver. It's a hereditary thing, or familial.
Yeah.
I don't know what the right word is. One of my favorite vegetables is spinach. Like, I used to use spinach instead of lettuce on sandwiches. And red meat because they're high
Right.
in iron.
Yeah.
So I have to be very careful. I'm a chicken eater, and but Carl and I have figured out. We've just learned, and it's easier because we don't have kids at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can cook. We've learned to shop for 2 people eating separate meals. Carl does prep my food, so he makes me chicken salad, right?
Yep.
With olive oil, mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Nice.
We make taco meat usually once every couple of weeks. We'll do a pound. So I always have food on hand that I like. So we'll have a meal together, but I have my snack food
Nice.
to keep me happy. And when the kids come home, how many kids do we have, Carl? Too many.
We have 4. I have 2 and you have 2, and together we have 4.
So my oldest will eat anything not nailed down. Doesn't matter what it is. She's going to eat it. Your oldest has gone, Emmy's gone back to keto, correct?
Yeah.
And then
She was our guest on the 3rd or 4th show, I think.
yeah, your newbie, right?
Yeah. And what happened is she went to Italy. Enough said.
Game over.
Yeah.
Game over.
But she's
It was
gone
very hard
back.
for her to get back on it, but she managed to keep most of her weight off.
Right.
But when she went back to school, she got back on the horse and is doing great.
Yeah, she looks
Awesome.
great. She sounds great. And then Nikisha, am I allowed to say this? So my Nikisha is the one who does what does she do? Instagram?
Yes,
Pinterest.
she's
That's
our
social
social
media.
media manager.
Oh, okay. I'm not a geek.
Mhm.
I don't know what her. I just write her a check every month, and
Uh-huh.
so, she's not fully keto, but she is cutting back carbs, so that's cool. And then Clara, the youngest, who's goodness going to be 15 soon. What does she call herself? Paleo? Is that?
Well, she was, but then she went back to eating cheese. So she's pretty much keto with occasional fruit.
Right.
And she slimmed down quite a bit.
I think kids can tolerate a lot more glucose.
So we've just learned, because we had all 4 of the kids home for Christmas. We had all 4 of them for 8 hours. All we had to do was fry 2 pounds of bacon. All those kids were in the kitchen.
Everybody can eat bacon
Yeah.
except for the vegans.
Right.
Yeah, we cooked bacon and they all came swarming. And so there's ways to do it if not everybody's on board. But
Yeah.
it does take some work. But we're learning. And look how good my husband looks.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So you're a blended family with blended menus.
In more ways than
That's
one.
right. And I got a blender, and I'm not afraid to use it.
Oh, let's not even start talking about the kitchen gadgets. This is where I'm really supportive.
Yeah. You need a supportive wife if you're going to live the lifestyle that Carl and I live.
Well, you can't really argue with the fact that kitchen tools are like medical expenses for me.
Yeah.
Because, the more I cook for myself, the healthier I'm going to get.
I'm convinced that cooking is the essence of keto.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, you can get keto meal replacements, or you can make a McDonald's burger that works keto, but you can't live on that stuff.
Yeah.
You really need to be able to learn to cook. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yep.
And I feel sorry for people who say to me, I can't can I do keto?
Mm-hmm.
Because I just got to say, not well is how you can do it, unfortunately.
Right. We've learned that prep, sitting down like on Sunday and saying, all right, what are we going to eat this week?
Yeah.
Here's my schedule. Here's your schedule. These are the meals we're going to have together. Because Carl used to come, like when I waitress, he'd come and have dinner at the restaurant. And he doesn't do that anymore because
it's too much of a challenge.
Yeah.
I work one step above a diner, I call it. It's a family restaurant, and it's actually getting harder for me to work. I have customers who I know are diabetic, and they'll order a milkshake, and I'm like, "What's your blood sugar? What was your blood sugar this morning?" And I refuse to make them their milkshake if it's too high. So he will just cook at home, and we know our restaurants we can go to where I can get something that makes me happy, but he can have a keto meal. It took us a while to get in sync. It took us a few months, but it's because I like grilled cheese.
Look how good Carl's going now. I mean, he's doing really well. That's awesome.
Well, and I really feel like I couldn't have done it without the support of my partner. I mean, and Kelly, thank you so much. You helped me save my life.
All right, but say you're sorry for dissing me on Leno's show.
I'm sorry for dissing you, honey.
Okay.
I'll try to be a better person.
That's the only reason I did the show was to get an apology. And
all right. Well, thank you, Kelly, again, and we will move on to a section that we call
Recipes!
All right. Now it's time to give back to one of our friends, one of our good friends, Butter Bob.
Yeah.
Butter Bob's he gave us a little bit of love. We're going to give him a little bit of love. Bob has put out a recipe for chili, Butter Bob's famous chili, which we'll link to, that he has both a video and just the recipe online that everybody swears by.
Yeah. Now, in Australia, chili would be called mince.
Right.
And which means something totally different in America. So any Americans don't worry too much about it. But an Aussie would call a bowl of hamburger meat with beans and tomato and stuff in it. Chili maybe, we'd call that mince or mincemeat.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, mincemeat for us is a sort of a sweet sauce that's made with like cloves and allspice, and there is some hamburger in it and other things. But
there's hamburger and mincemeat pie?
Yeah, that's why they call it mincemeat.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's meat in it.
I thought the nuts were the meat.
At least my grandmother put meat in hers. All right, well, anyway. So you're going to brown 3.5 pounds of hamburger meat. And while the meat is browning, use a food processor to chop 2 green bell peppers and 1 yellow onion. And then you measure these spices on a plate so you can easily add them when the hamburger is brown. 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 1/8 of a cup of cumin, 1/8 of a cup, right? So that might seem like a lot, but cumin is a secret spice in chili.
Yeah.
1/4 of a cup of chili powder, 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. The more you use, the hotter.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 teaspoons of salt. So you open 2 cans, 1 10.5 ounce can of Rotel tomatoes and green chilies. And I guess that's a very particular brand.
Just be peeled tomatoes would work, yeah.
Peeled tomatoes with some chilies in it, maybe, or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
And a 10 3/4 ounce can of tomato puree.
Okay.
So he's not very particular in terms of which tomato puree to use, but he is particular about the Rotel tomatoes and green chilies. Okay.
Right.
So you drain the fat off the brown hamburger into a bowl and don't throw it away.
No.
You pour about half the drained fat back into the pot. So he says, over a cup of fat, I reused about half of that, a little over half a cup this time. You could use all the fat, but it might make the chili too greasy. That may or may not be a problem for you. Add the spices you prepared into the pot with the meat and mix. You add the chopped onions and peppers into the pot with the meat and mix, and add a full box of beef broth, or about 32 ounces. Now you mix in the Rotel tomatoes and green chilies and the tomato puree. Mix it all up. Let it cook for 30 to 45 minutes on medium heat. Stir often. And I see what he's doing here. He's not making it in a instant pot or a crock pot.
Right.
He's making it over the stove so that the liquid will reduce. But if you cover it, the liquid isn't going to reduce.
So you start off with less liquid. You might start off with a tomato paste instead of the puree or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. These are just little adjustments you make. So he says, serve it up with some shredded real whole fat cheese and or sour cream, and hopefully enjoy. He says it's almost impossible to figure exact calorie or macronutrient numbers, but the following is my best calculated guess. 65% fat, 27% protein, 8% carbs, 6% net carbs. 297 grams of fat for the full pot of chili. This is if you drain and throw away half a cup of fat. 272 grams of protein for a full pot. 83 grams total carbs for a full pot. 60 grams of net carbs for a full pot. So it is a little bit higher on the carb spectrum than a lot of us might want. But you obviously can use this as a template to make your own. And I would even say start with whole tomatoes and just, blanch them, peel them, and cook them down.
Yeah.
Why not?
If you have a hot smoker, I like to blanch and peel tomatoes and then just put them on a tray and smoke them for 30 minutes. And that basically turns tomatoes into barbecued tomato. You just puree those up, and that's barbecue tomato puree, which is awesome.
Oh, that's something you can do with your smoking gun.
That's right. You make it sound so delicious, Kelly.
I know. I've been practicing that voice.
Yeah.
Was there any butter in there?
No, there isn't, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, you can increase the flavor by, instead of putting all that beef fat back in, add some butter instead.
Yeah.
Well, the first time I thought Carl was crazy. Well, okay, one of the first times where were we? We were at this fancy steakhouse. Was it Tony D's?
Probably.
He buttered your steak.
He got this beer, and he's like, take some, because I, of course, got chicken parmesan, because that's like my meal. And he takes my butter, because I don't do tomato sauce, because a lot of them have onion in them, and I'm allergic to onion.
Sure.
So I just get butter for the pasta. And he takes my freaking butter and slathers his steak in butter. And I'm like, are you effing crazy?
No, it's good. Especially on a lean steak.
Yeah, I particularly like to see the look on the waiter's face when I get a ribeye and I say, can you give me some melted butter, please? And just see the look on their face, you know? Nice. So that's my recipe, Richard. What do you got?
That's awesome. I've got char kway teow, which is I guess it's an Indonesian dish, or it's a rice noodle dish. But a bowl of this will be about 360 calories, so it's not a very large meal.
Wow.
It's about 10 grams of carbohydrate, about 5 of which are fiber. Mm-hmm. So it's about 5 net grams, and it's about 20 grams of fat and about 33 grams of protein. Wow. The traditional meal, you use rice noodles and you make the noodles yourself, but we're going to use the shirataki noodles, miracle noodles, which is zero carbs. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with we're going to put the kettle on. And we're going to fill it full of water, boil the water, and we're going to put the konjac noodles, or the shirataki noodles, in a bowl with some boiling water, and we're going to cover that. We're going to put that aside, and that'll just seep for a bit. It'll warm up the noodles. It'll get rid of some of that smell from the noodles. We don't have to do the nuke it and wash it several times trick, because that particular smell will actually go well with this particular meal, because the meats in this meal are prawns, or shrimp, you'd call them in America, and squid tubes. So we're going to mix a tablespoon of light soy sauce and half a tablespoon of dark soy sauce. And we're going to add to that about a quarter of a teaspoon of sesame oil. You don't need a lot of sesame oil, but it's a really good flavour, yeah. And we're going to add to that a little bit of white pepper, a pinch of white pepper, and we're going to add some erythritol. And I'm going to put about a quarter of a teaspoon of erythritol in, and what that does is there is a term for flavours where you have sweet, savoury, sharp, and protein, and it's called in English we call it yum, but yum actually comes from an Indonesian word that means this perfect balance of these flavours. So,
no kidding.
So the erythritol adds to that yum to make the meal perfectly balanced.
Yum.
Yum, indeed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat the wok, spray it with a bit of cooking oil. We have spray coconut oil, does a great job.
Wow.
So what we're going to do is we're going to make up an egg mix from 2 large eggs, and we're going to add a teaspoon of fish sauce. We're going to beat that up together, and we're going to use a third of that at a time in a hot wok, and we're going to rock the wok so that this egg mixture covers the whole base, and it's going to cook very quickly. We're basically making a very thin fish saucy omelette.
Yeah.
And then we're going to take those out, and we're going to they're going to be large circles of omelette. We're going to put them on a cutting board, and we're going to slice the omelette into strips. What we're doing is we're trying to make lots of strip shape things to replace the rice noodles. So we've got the shirataki, and we've got a fettuccine shirataki, or you can get a lasagna shirataki and slice the sheets up into smaller bits. We've got the egg noodles that we've made out of egg and fish sauce, and we're also going to get some squid tubes, and we're going to cut those so that we basically make rings of these squid tubes. Yeah. So we've got our sauce in a bowl on the side that we've mixed up with our soy sauces. We've made our egg noodles, and now we're going to start cooking the meats. So we're going to put a little bit of lard in the pan, maybe a tablespoon of lard, and we're going to add to that our shrimp, and that's going to be 175 grams of shrimp, and we're going to get some squid tubes, and we're going to cut those up, about 200 grams of squid tubes. It's actually one squid tube will do the job. And this meal, I probably didn't mention before, but this is a meal for 2 people, so enough portions for 2 people. So basically we've got the lard in the wok. We've got the wok up to a really hot temperature. So we throw in 4 cloves of garlic, get those to brown up, and then we're going to add to that the shrimp, and we're going to add the squid, and we're probably going to add maybe 2 links of lapchong, which is a Chinese sausage. We're going to slice that up into discs and add that as well. And what that does is it renders down, and the sausage discs end up to be crisp like little croutons, but they render their fat into the meal.
Now, if you don't have lard and you don't have Chinese sausage, could you substitute like bacon fat and maybe a chorizo or something?
Definitely. Chorizo would work fine here, and oil would work fine. Chinese sausage lapchong is ideal, and you'll find this in most Chinatowns. You'll probably find there's a dozen different varieties of it. I tend to not go for the dark lapchong because dark lapchong has liver in it. As you know, I'm a notorious liver dodger. Yeah. And you just compare the carbohydrate content because some of them have a lot of rice flour in them. Okay. We've managed to find one that we like, and we've got 5 packets of it in the cupboard. Great. So we've got all of our meats now cooked down. They've cooked in the lard with a little bit of the garlic. And now what we're going to do is we're going to drain the konjac noodles, and we're going to add to those noodles some mung bean sprouts.
Love them.
So about 125 grams of mung beans. Yep. And we're going to add some chopped up bok choy, 125 grams of bok choy, or you could use pak choy, or you could use Chinese broccoli, or you could use spinach.
Or cabbage.
Any of these leafy greens you could use. And basically we're going to stir fry these, basically throw them in over the meats that have cooked. And we're basically trying to get the green leaves to wilt. and then what I do is I add the sauce at the end. Basically, use a chan, which is like a large spoon, to keep the stir fry moving in the wok, and that's it. That's a meal, and that'll serve
great.
2 people, and it's not a lot of calories, but it's yum. That's what it is. It's yum.
Yum.
Char kway tao.
Wow, that sounds exquisite. I would really, I
Delicious.
do miss Asian food because there's so much rice and a lot of sweeteners and MSG and stuff. But we did the keto pad thai at Reno's house.
Yes.
Interestingly, both our blood sugars went up the day after we ate that.
Wow.
So might be something in that stuff that was working against us. But yeah, I don't know. It takes further research. Well, I guess that's the show, Richard.
Yeah, it's interesting, Carl. We've been spread across the globe for this show. I've been in Australia, as I usually am. You've been in London, England, and Kelly, of course, in Keto Dude's home central studio, New London.
I'm in Old London. She's in New London. And thanks again, Kelly, for joining us.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks for the apology.
So, of course, if you have anything that you want to tell us, dear listener, something we said wrong, something you don't agree with, or some more research that you found to support or refute anything that we've said, send it by email to dudes@twoketodudes.com or post it on our website.
Right. And you can follow us on Twitter at 2KetoDudes, on Instagram at 2KetoDudes. And of course, if you want to join our forum, it's www.ketogenicforums.com or forum.2keto.com. Keep calm and keto on, Richard.
Yeah, keep calm and keto on, Carl.
Keep calm and, well, Kelly, just keep calm.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you next time on 2 Keto Dudes.